Lies of P is a 2023 action role-playing game where you play as a yassified version of Pinocchio. I mean, bro looks like a mixture of Ruby Rose and the motherfucker from Dune. SP is what they call him in the game for some reason. I don't know if it's to avoid copyright or some shit, but whatever. As P, you are a robot puppet created by some old geezer called Geppetto, which if you know anything about the Pinocchio books, Geppetto is the guy that created, well, Pinocchio. Anyways, in this universe, Geppetto also created a fuck ton of other puppets to the point where everyone and their mama had one. He also uses some energy thingy called Ergo to power them. So yeah, he basically mass produced these guys, but something went really wrong with the puppets and now they're killing everyone, causing mayhem and shit. And it's up to you, P, to fight your way through the hordes of puppets to find out who and what caused all of this. So yeah, this game has been on my radar ever since it first got announced, and I remembered seeing it for the first time and I was really like hooked on it. You're telling me this is Pinocchio but Bloodborne? Yes, sign me, bro, just sign me up, bro. No, after finally playing through and beating the game, I can definitely say that it's pretty solid. I mean, it has a bunch of good shit going for it, such as the amazing graphics, settings, lore, the weapon system, especially the weapon system. Like, bro, you can change handles and shit, which will change your weapon stats and animations. Oh, you got a great sword that does a shit ton of damage, but the only drawback is that it's really slow and takes a whole fucking year to land an attack? Then no problem, just apply an axe handle or another fast weapon handle onto it. Now you have a great sword that's fast as shit. Now that sounds broken as hell, but the game does make the damage a bit lower if you're doing that specifically, but it's still pretty good. However, before I get into more things about what I like about the game, let's talk about a response. I'm just playing. Let's talk about another Souls-like game that I thought to be really similar to Lies of P, so similar to the point where I had to compare these two. The game I'm talking about is Steel Rising. Steel Rising is a Souls-like game where you play as a special robot created by some guy who was technically your dad in a steampunk setting where you have to kill a bunch of robots and shit and make your way to kill the guy who's controlling them. Come on, Souls-like aside, you can't tell me that they aren't at least a bit similar in like settings and themes and other aspects. Anyways, I just wanted to compare them. Also, the other main thing I wanted to compare Lies of P to was also Bloodborne. I mean, come on, this game was obviously, it took a lot of inspirations from Bloodborne. I mean, both are in a steampunk-esque setting, they both have an old mentor who wants you to give them something in the end that will affect the ending, and you have the maiden, you also have like a maiden as well. Plus, there are guys in Lies of P called Stalkers who are just basically the hunters of Bloodborne. For fuck's sakes, you even have the whirligig saw in this game. And by the way, I'm not complaining. I like this shit. I love this. I really like when a game like takes inspiration and wears it on its sleeve, like as like a trophy or whatever. I really like that. Okay, where was I again? Oh, I already kind of talked about the weapon assembly system, but let's talk about something else I really liked, and that's the fact that it's probably the first Souls-like that doesn't feel like a dollar store version of the actual games. It feels really well made, and that's because they nailed three important key components in what I look for in a Souls game: the combat, the lore, and the memorable boss fights. Let's start with the combat. The combat is somewhat medium paced. It's not slow but not super fast either, which can be a good and a bad thing, but I'm gonna save the bad for when I talk about the cons of the game. But overall, the combat movement feels decent, at least after a couple upgrades, which I'm gonna get into later. The lore. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you, I ain't no VOD videos, so don't expect me to go in depth on why Geppetto's ass hair is brown instead
Bro, what are you
of fucking
talking
gray
about?
or some shit. But this game did something where a lot of other Souls-likes failed to do, making me actually give a shit about the world that I'm playing in. Like, the main story itself is pretty decent. Now, I'm not gonna tell you guys anything story related until later on, but don't worry, I'll give you a spoiler warning for that. Anyways, let's talk about how memorable the bosses are. This is another thing even the best Souls-likes tend to miss on, at least for me. Before this game came out, I was worried about how they would handle the bosses, since, you know, everyone is basically puppets and shit. And they handled them in a good way. I was actually surprised to see the variety of enemies and bosses throughout the whole game. And a couple of them were definitely memorable. I like how even the puppet boss fights have variety to them because they never felt samey, if you know what I mean. And also later on in the game, not really mid game but somewhere around early game, light spoilers by the way, you'll meet up on some zombie like enemies that's gonna come in all shapes and sizes. And I was surprised by this because I thought you were going to be fighting puppets all the way throughout the game. And even some of the bosses, mostly a lot of the late game bosses, tend to be similar to these zombie-like things. The bosses in this game is really punishing, probably more punishing than Sekiro or any other Souls games, but at the same time, they don't feel super unfair. Maybe until like New Game Plus, where you realize that yeah, a lot of these bosses are just tanky as shit for some reason. And I kind of had to change my mindset on some of these bosses, and I think you should too for the most part. You see, when I go into the boss fight for the first time in this game, I had to know that okay, I'm not really here to like brute force my way to win. I'm here to just learn their moves for the most part and to see which attacks are easily deflected or which ones are, I should just avoid and dodge. This mindset will help you a lot with the bosses because you can't really just, again, brute force your way through them. So I give the devs credit for actually making you learn the boss fights. However, there are some things I still don't like about the boss fights, mostly the mid to late game ones. This is kind of where I'm going to start talking about the cons of the game. First one being parry windows. Now, the reason why I mention parry windows when when talking about the bosses is because it feels like the devs thought everyone had fucking observation hockey or the Sharingan or some shit. Cause bro, some of the bosses' attacks feel almost impossible to read and parry, especially in their second phases, which is totally a whole different boss fight most of the time, even though they're the same person. Now don't get me wrong, eventually you'll learn how to parry and perfectly dodge some of the attacks, and the tip I learned is that as soon as you see the attack about to reach you, don't tap the button hoping to parry because most of the times you'll fail unless you have an absolutely great reaction time or some shit. So what you're gonna do is as soon as you see attack coming towards you, just hold the parry button instead. Doing this, even if you miss the parry, you will still block the attack. However, another problem with the bosses is the second phase thing, where they gain a whole other health bar. And remember, these bosses are they are tanky as shit. Like when I mean they're tanky, you are just scratching their health most of the times, bro. Like it is really like crazy. And another thing I don't really like about the second phase is that the bosses they get super overtuned, like to the point where it's like, come on, bro. And they leave barely any rooms for attacks. Cough, cough, Luxasia. At this point, most of the first phase of the bosses becomes super manageable after, your millionth death. This is kind of frustrating because of heals. The game is somewhat kind of stingy with healing items, with some of them being locked into a skill tree that I have mixed feelings about. And most players won't even reach 10 heals by the time they finish the game. But speaking about the, skill tree, which is called the P organ, which why the fuck would they call it that? Whatever, I like the name, fuck it bro, I love the name. Like, I have mixed feelings about it. On one hand, this game is an RPG at the end of the day, so leveling up your stats is your main way of progression, and if they made leveling up your skill tree just as easy by using experience points instead, it would probably make the game way too easy. However, I think that the main source of leveling up P organs, which is quartz, is too scarce. Now, it's not super rare or anything, but because, you usually get it after defeating some bosses or some special enemies. But that's the problem. Some. For the amount of skills in this game, you sure need a fuck ton of quartz in order to acquire just one of them. For example, if you want a specific skill, you'll need to spend 2 or more quartz in order to get it. Shit, later on during the skill tree, you need to spend 4, 3 or 4. Like, come on, bro. However, you will realize that finding quartz isn't so easy, so most of the time you won't even finish the main game with all phases of the skill tree unlocked, which is, I get it, because it's a way of making you want to do, New Game Plus or whatever, but it is what it is. Also, they placed 2 important things in the skill tree that I think should have been on the character by default, and that's a link dodge and ground dodge. Link dodge is basically what allows you to dodge twice super fast, and the ground dodge allows you to just dodge roll after getting hit on the ground, so your character doesn't take a year to get to get the fuck up or something. I just wish they were already on the character from the start. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not asking the devs to overhaul the entire game and make it super easy, because trust me, that would not be fun at all. All I'm asking for is to at least widen the parry windows a little bit, so even the more faster overtuned bosses doesn't feel cheap because of some bullshit hard to read attacks or some shit. Also, I think making quartz a bit more accessible or available would be nice as well. But overall, bro, the game is one of my favorite game this year, and don't take these cons as me saying the game is bad, because holy shit, I recommend this game a lot. If you, as to people who are into Souls games or extremely challenging games, if you're into Souls likes or Soulsborne games, bro, play this. Bro, and another thing is, I'm kind of disappointed in something, is because people are kind of calling it just another Souls like. Bro, I feel like this is the Souls like. This is the closest I've ever seen a game come to being like to feel like an actual Soulsborne game. Shit, I will even say it's better than Dark Souls 2. I don't know why I threw Dark Souls 2 under the bus. Dark Souls 2 is a decent game, but I don't know why I just did that, bro. It's not a bad game. I fuck with Dark Souls 2. I don't know why I did that. Now let's continue with the story summary. Before I do this, there will be major spoilers. Like, I'm summarizing the whole game and ending, so you can just skip to the time on the screen if you don't want to know what's going on. Also, again, I'm not like VOD video or anything, so I'm gonna miss out a bunch of stuff. I'm just summarizing my playthrough, or the best ending. You know, I'm just gonna summarize up to that point. So yeah. Anyways, again, back to the story. Anyways, again, Pinocchio is tasked to find out who is behind the puppet frenzy. Pinocchio gets awoken by this blue butterfly sent by this absolute baddie right here. He's tasked to find out who is behind the puppet frenzy, so he makes his way to find Geppetto to get some answers or clues, but before that he makes his way to Hotel Krat, which he has to lie to get in, which is considered weird because puppets can't lie except for Pinocchio. The reason being is because of some commandments the puppets have to follow. However, there is a secret commandment that was embedded in the puppets that I'll, talk about later on. Anyways, in this hotel, there's an old lady, a blacksmith, a robot that sells you shit, but most importantly, you have this fine-ass baddie called Sophia who I try to rizz up, but she only want to talk about stupid shit, so whatever, I guess. Anyways, she's basically our level up maiden of the game. As you make your way to find Geppetto, you find some random donkey motherfucker trying to antagonize him and shit, so Pinocchio kills him and talks to Geppetto, who just yaps on about some bullshit. Anyways, you later go to like a Lorenzini Venighi fucking workshop and find him. Basically, this guy is the Tony Stark of this game. He's a rich inventor and a fucking playboy, I guess. And by the way, I think he helped Geppetto created the puppets. Anyways, once you progress further into the game, you will come up onto this village that has a bunch of zombie-like creatures. This is basically the bloodborne twist of the game. Kinda, not really. You see, the disease that these people have is caused by too much exposure to ergo. And that's all I know. At least that's what I think. I might be wrong, who knows. So you make your way up to the cathedral and defeated this corrupted archbishop. Then afterwards you make your way to some place and fight the Black Rabbit Brotherhood, which has a cool ass intro scene. And also the eldest brother has a cool ass sword that I wish you could fucking get. I don't know why they added this dope ass weapon just to edge us. I don't know. Anyways, after defeating them, you make your way inside and find a painting that looks really similar to you. You then make your way to Hotel Krat again and ask Geppetto about the painting, and of course all bro does is yap and never get to the point. So we make our way to Isabel Street to an opera house and we fight King of all the puppets, Romeo. So basically on our first playthrough, we hear the puppets talk, but we can't understand them. However, on New Game Plus, or if you read the subtitles carefully, you can hear or see what they're saying. This is great because on our first playthrough on this boss fight, we see a small presentation of a puppet that looks like us getting our heart taken out by Geppetto and getting it placed into another puppet. On my first playthrough, I saw this as Romeo mocking us or whatever, but after him killing me, I realized that he looks sad, and not only that, but he tried to reach out to us, but we slapped his hand away. And also on my second playthrough, he's saying that he can't really control everything because of the secret commandment or whatever. Not only that, but Romeo was our childhood friend. Anyways, fast forward, we make our way to where the Alchemists are, which are the bad guys in this game, and we meet up with Simon, who's basically the main bad guys of the story. He yaps on for a bit, then tells us to pull up on this island or whatever. We then make our way to the swamp and fight this thing. Then we progress our way back to Krat. But something's off as we go inside and the hotel is like vandalized by the Black Rabbit Brotherhood and other stalkers as well. And we find out that Geppetto is kidnapped. We then use a secret door inside the old lady's room to make our way underground, and apparently it's a secret passage to, the Alchemist Island. It would be fucking nice if she, fucking said that in the beginning. Fucking old bitch. Anyways, we go down deep inside the tunnel or whatever. Anyways, we go down and we meet up with the Black Rabbit Brotherhood again, and we finally killed them this time. Then we take a submarine and make our way up to the Alchemist Island. We end up on a beach shoreside and it is revealed to us that our bae, Sophia, wasn't real and she also kinda lied to us. She said that the reason why she woke us up was to help the city of Crack, but in actuality, it's to save her, which isn't, it's not such a bad thing. I can forgive her for that. I mean, come on. So we make our way up to the island and we progress up the tower, and we get confronted by Luxagia on the bridge, who is Simon's perfect creation, and not only that, but she has the coolest second phase intro in the whole entire game. But then again, her issues lies with her second phase. She's just way too fast and leaves little rooms for attacks, but other than that, she's probably the coolest boss in this entire game. I don't know what, but every time there's a sword wielding overtuned baddie that strips down midway through the fight to beat my ass, I don't know, there's just some part of me that likes that shit. Anyways, after defeating her, we go inside and find the real body of Mommy Sophia, and holy shit, she definitely has seen better days. Anyways, we get an option to let her live or to give her peace. The best option is to just, give her peace. After that, we make our way up and we meet up with Geppetto, who is inside a prison cell, because he was captured. Remember, he was kidnapped or whatever. And as Geppetto does, he yaps on for a bit about some bullshit or whatever. Then we make our way up some more up the tower. Then we find Simon, and for some reason he looks like Solomon Grundy now. For some reason, I don't know, he talks about becoming God or whatever. Anyways, we fight him and then defeat him. He then tells us that blah 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 Sophia is this and how much of a pain it's gotta be to read people's mind, and after dying in his final words, he said, "Don't trust Geppetto." Suspicious. Speaking of Geppetto, let's take a rewind around somewhere in the late game before this area. We spoke to Venini, and he asked us to translate what the secret commandment was, and it's basically something like Geppetto's orders are absolute, or some shit like that, which means that even if the puppets have to follow the previous commandments or covenant, if Geppetto tells them to stop, they would stop. So basically Geppetto is the one that purposely caused the puppet frenzy. So yeah, bro is really sketchy as hell. Anyways, we make our way down beneath the arena where we fought Simon, and we meet up with, Geppetto, who's already there for some reason. He then tells us to give him the arm of God, which we got by defeating Simon, and also to give him our heart so we can turn into a real boy. But something is really up with the way he talks and everything. Not only that, but progressing through the whole game, Pinocchio was already becoming a real boy. Shit, he might have technically became one, because at the final fight we get a message saying that we feel warmth, meaning that Pinocchio is way more human now, or at least technically human now. And not only that, but his hair began to grow as well, where even Geppetto was like kind of shocked by this, because something's up. And after all we learned about Geppetto, the right answer is to not give him our art. This makes Geppetto really mad to the point where bro doesn't even call us his son no more, but a useless fucking puppet instead. And the way he puts the emphasis on the P is almost like bro is calling us a slur. Not only that, but he keeps telling us that we're just a vessel for his real son, because he basically wants to bring his actual son back to life, which is kind of, something I can at least say gives him a bit of a humanity. But the way he goes about it is kind of messed up. And then, after that, Geppetto awakens a nameless puppet. By the way, remember, when Romeo showed us that little presentation of Geppetto taking our heart and putting it into another puppet, that's what he was trying to warn us about. Anyways, we defeated the puppet, but before he kills us, Geppetto sacrificed himself to save our heart. He even looked at the puppet and said, "You were gonna go for Carlo's heart, weren't you?" And by the way, Carlo was like, remember the boy in the picture? That's Carlo. It was Geppetto's son. And Pinocchio is based to look like Carlo. And he even has his like ergo and memories. Well, not memories, but personality, I guess. Then Pinocchio lands the most anime fucking punch I've ever seen, killing the puppet. Then depending on the choices you made throughout the game, you get two different dialogue from Geppetto. The first one saying that you were a fucking disappointment and a useless puppet. And the other one, which is if you only lied throughout the whole game. He tells Pinocchio he's sorry after seeing, Pinocchio shedding a tear or whatever. After this, we see P go up to where the doll of Sophia is, and we give her ergo to her, and we see our bae come back to life, holding us in her arms. And apparently Pinocchio isn't dead in this cutscene, just probably exhausted or some shit. Then an after credit scene shows this guy throughout the whole game who told us that he was a pharmacist or whatever, talking to somebody about a new key or some shit like that. And that the person is Dorothy, who is basically the girl from Wizard of Oz. So yes, this whole thing was to set up some sort of cool Souls-like universe based on popular fairy tales and fables. So that was the story for the most part. Again, Lies of P is a great fucking game, and if this, trust me, if this is the studio's first game, and they're able to make it this good, then I'm excited to see what they do with more Souls like. I like the thing that they're doing with the whole fairy tale reimagining thing. I really like that. So yeah, bro, Lies of P, one of the best games I've played this year, and I've really enjoyed it. Low-key, to be honest, my personal game of the year. I hope you all have a good day, and if you enjoyed this video, leave a like.